mistaken it. I've got some questions.
Yeah.
Is anyone else worried about the financial position of the cemetery, the FCJC, the Cemetery Joint Committee? Because the way it seems to me, things aren't going all that well. Do you want me to go through it? I mean, the figures are here in the budget report. Now, I'm prepared to accept I've made a mistake here somewhere, but I've been looking at it and I can't see it at all. So, basically, the income to the Cemetery Joint Committee is now, against budget, is nearly £6,000 below. Now, some of that, the budget is for the whole year, and the income that we've actually had is only for 3/4 of the year, rather than the whole year. But it's still out by a fair bit. We haven't had in the fees that we were looking for, and we've spent, well, we haven't, in terms of income, we haven't had the fees that we're looking for. So that seems like, and haven't been in the parish contributions, which hopefully are going to be coming in the last year. Right, okay. Well, if you then look at the expenses, quite a way over budget. I mean, we've got a budget of £7,400, payments year to date 15,034. So, we've already taken £8,300 out of reserves, but that coupled with the shortfall in the income leaves us 13 grand out. That seems to me to be a problem.
So what's the last bit you left?
So we've got we have a budget of 7,400.
Yeah.
We have had payments so far this year of 15,000.
Yeah.
Sorry, to the end of December, not so far. This is all to the end of December.
Yeah.
We've had payments out of 15,034.
Yeah.
We've already taken £8,300 from general reserves for the Parish Council.
From the cemetery.
From the cemetery to top up the funds.
Yeah.
But overall, if you look at the shortfall of income of £6,000 and the shortfall of over 7,000 of expenses, or the overspend of 7,000 of expenses, that's 13 grand over the 13,000 out, which seems worrying to me, as we streamline this. Sorry, and all, but
it has been. We have. I will say it is accurate what you're saying in that fees are down. So when we calculate the fees, the fees are. The expected income is effectively an average of the last sort of 10 years. And it is true, burials have been dropping off, so we're not hitting that average target of what we're expecting. It's really difficult to predict because there was a year, a few years back where we got 10 burials, that was a lot, 10 plots were purchased, that was a really bumpy year in terms of fee income. And then we've had a few years where there's been 1 or 2 burials, and unfortunately we've had a few years in a row where it's been very low on that.
Still out,
it is. There hasn't been any. There is expense, a large amount of expense this year. A lot of the big expenditure figure has been the purchase of the new bench for the cemetery, but also the new benches for the war memorial. So although those come out of the cemetery budget, they are. The reason we do it through the cemetery. The reason we do them through the cemetery budget is because all 3 parish councils also contribute to costs at the war memorial, so it makes sense to have it under the same umbrella with the 3 councils working together.
No, I quite understand.
So we haven't really put, in my time here, this is the first real expenditure year that we've made over and above just general running costs. So the benches in there were really in dire need. We're taking out 1, don't know how well you know the cemetery, but if you walk down through the cemetery, past the crossroads, and then on the right-hand side where there's the unknown section behind you, you've got a bench there that's a memorial bench, and it's really poor quality. So unfortunately, it hasn't meant we've had to expend. I think generally this is a problem that there's a lot of parish councils are seeing, that there just isn't, they are a bit of a sinking pot, cemeteries now, I think. There seems to be much more of a trend, like Hazel feels that she sees much more of a trend towards ash cremations, and then people either put maybe just a memorial plaque in, or they have their ashes put in the cemetery, but they're not, there has generally been a decline, a trend of less interest in burials. Now it leaves us with a bit of, it does leave us with a bit of a problem, because that's why this money has been mentioned a couple of times, the £10,000 put aside for the new cemetery. That was put aside when the cemetery, there was a few years where there was a big cemetery, there was a lot of activity, there was a lot of burials took place, and they thought they wanted to put money aside because they thought they would run out of room. Now that's looking like a massive unlikelihood, because it's just, the trend is just dropped off. And I think this is a problem facing quite a few parish councils, because we're in a position that it is duty, it's a statutory responsibility on ourselves to maintain the cemetery, and the same, you know, alongside Newton and Moor and Thurston.
But that's isn't that what precept is for?
Yes.
Is to make up the shortfall income over expenditure.
Exactly. So this year we have spent a bit of money, because we've had maintenance, we've had a new mower to purchase and so on. Now we are expecting, so you'll see that there was a shortfall in the general reserves. Now we are expecting in the VAT refund for the benches and the mower, so there's quite a chunk of money to come back in on VAT, and there's also the 2 contributions. So I think we have got more income due by the year end, but generally I agree that there is a trend that the cemetery is costing us more than it's earning. So it is being now subsidised, whereas previously in years gone by, it did pay for itself because of the number of burials. Now the 3 councils are subsidising the cemetery. We have put the budget up, so for the forthcoming financial year, the cemetery budget has been increased, so that each parish council will be putting in more on basically on account of outgoings. So the parish contributions that will be coming in have been increased, and therefore that is coming in from precept, because Felton's obviously, but the cemetery income's been budgeted higher, so the parish council will be putting more into the cemetery pot.
So the coming financial year.
Yeah, so the precept, so that's coming from precept, so it is. So basically the taxpayers in the village are subsidising the cemetery, but it's a really difficult thing to get rid of, because we would have to, I haven't looked into it, and I understand it's very, very difficult to close the cemetery, because there's an obligation to provide burial spaces.
Well,
So
it's more about covering my ass as a parish
No,
council.
it's fine, it's fine.
Because
And I
we've
think
all okayed these expenses, yet we can
it is, and I do agree that we are at the point where that's why we've put the budget up for the cemetery, so that the parish councils will contribute more. So it is coming out of precept, because there is a general trend towards it not being sustainable.
Any other thing was that we agreed the budget before the salary increases went through.
Yeah.
This year, yeah, we did, yeah.
Okay,
So the salaries are out.
So what, the salaries are out because of the, okay. What I'm concerned about really is that, you know, we've already taken £8,300 out of the reserves for Parish Council.
Yeah.
We've got another.
It's not out of the parish council
No, but-
reserves, it's out of the general reserves from the
Cemetery. But Alan, the thing is, the thing is, so
Well, how come that isn't in the figures then? The cemetery committee figures are £12,418.37. We've taken.
yeah, but then if you look at the general reserves underneath, they're reserves for the cemetery.
So
Yes, we're only 9 months through the year, Alan, but if I can just come on to that point, the 9 months through the year, but a lot of the costs take place during the summer. So the grounds maintenance, we've already paid the grounds maintenance, which is an expense this year. We've already paid the most of it. So currently, in the current year, though we have talked about changing it so it's a regular payment through the year, the grounds maintenance staff costs are higher in the summer months because there's more grass cutting going on. This month there hasn't been any grass cutting, but there's no salary to pay. The same will probably be true in February.
So we're not looking at big expenditure.
I don't,
for
for now, no, we're not. The fourth quarter's really very quiet. There's nothing very much. So I
So
think
that
these will be
means-
quite steady now to the end of the year.
That that money in general reserve, that's not, so we
Those
take
general-
out, so there's 8,000 come out of that, and so we're really running down reserves.
We are running down the reserves. That's where the money's come from. But we're running down the reserves, but if you remember, I've just said there's money due to come in because we've got contributions still to come in from the other two parishes, and we've also got a VAT return to come in.
Are the other parishes aware of the expense over?
Yes, because
the
they're,
overspend?
because this money, these fees, yes, because they attend the cemetery committee meetings where these figures are also presented.
How much are you anticipating coming in
From the,
from the VAT and the?
I can't tell you the VAT off the top of my head, but there is still, so if you look at these two figures here, John, it's on the screen, I'll just say it, that's Felton's contribution. So it's whatever the difference is between those two monies still to come in from the other two parish councils, so 2.5?
2.5 grand.
Yeah.
And then
And
where's
then
the amount,
VAT,
where's the amount claimed back to the VAT?
the VAT will be,
We've been having
so recoverable VAT,
1,200.
1,200.
So 3,000, so you're 600 quid out.
So plus 1,200, and I think there might be slightly, There might be a little bit.
I mean, this is part of the problem, not producing a balance sheet for the council,
But when that,
because we don't know.
but when that comes in, you're minus 4 grand.
Well, that's
If
not
all
an
that-
income, really. I mean, the money's gone out, we treated it as an expense, but
But
an
it's not-
expense after that. So all that is a chunk of money that we're going to get back.
yes.
But
It's
the
all going
allocated,
to current.
but the allocated.
Yeah, but I'm not allowed to do
Yeah.
this. You know, I said in the question through about that you asked about the from that I asked the auditor of that we're not allowed to net that off. So we have to show it as an expense and an income, even though actually, no, I'm just saying. So that's why it goes on both sides.
I'm not suggesting you net it off, I'm suggesting that you treat the VAT paid as an asset.
No, I'm not allowed to do that. I've asked the external auditor. I have to
Did
treat
you
it.
ask?
Yes, I am. Yes, I can show you. I asked,
That's because we use this cash book method of
which is
accounting.
what we're supposed to use under the.
Are we obliged to use that, or can we use some more business-like and streamlined method of?
We can, but it's more complicated to do. It's more complicated to do income expenditure accounting. It's less complicated to do income and receipts. The receipts and payments, which is why we recommend receipts and payments for small councils. If we were to go to the other system, we would have to redo all our accounts from last year as well. I think it would be
Why from last?
because you have to show 2 years in the same format.
Right.
So
Okay, this is one to carry on discussing, because I don't think these figures really, they add up, everything balances, I've checked it myself, I've spent hours checking through it myself, but these do not represent the financial position we're in.
But they do though, because
Well, in an incredibly roundabout, confusing sort of way.
I would say that.
I'm not pointing the finger at you.
no, I don't
This is
understand.
one
I don't understand what.
work it is.
I don't understand what balance sheet would show more, because you have got a balance column, you've got a balance column, you can see how much we have left in our budget and how much we have in the reserves, and the general reserves is a minus figure, but that's going to, as John's pointed out, that's going to mostly come back in.
But then we're going to be left with zero.
No, you're going to be left with minus £600.
Which could be transferred out of the new cemetery fund of 10,525. So we're not going to be at zero, we're going to be at 12,400.
But the benches that we purchased for the war memorial this year aren't going to get done next year. Neither is the new bench that's getting put in.
So
it's not going
hang on,
to be.
they're not going to get done.
You're not buying them again. So
Oh,
the
no,
so the dint in the
No, I
reserves.
realise that, but it's still part of us going over budget, seriously going over budget.
And
Basically,
we'll have the railings all painted,
Railings painted.
because they needed to be maintained.
whatever, the point is that we've gone over budget. The whole point of the budget is, can we afford it or not? And the way these accounts look to me, we couldn't afford it.
We
Well, if you
can,
look at
cash.
well,
We have the cash, but that's not the same thing.
But you need to look at that in the fourth quarter to see whether you went over budget.
Yeah.
We're seriously.
What I'm saying is
Alan,
I expect-
if we had those payments in at the start of the year, okay,
We would be
you
in-
probably wouldn't be asking this question, because you would go, right, it's
That's
at a small deficit.
Income versus expenditure, profit and loss, those questions I've been asking.
Yeah,
There wouldn't be any-
Okay, but that's easily explained by the cemetery is not making the income through burials that it would normally.
So
We've
it's
had a business open right on our doorstep, which is flourishing with the, because there's been such a high demand for that in the area.
I'm not talking about the details, I'm talking about the overall system that we're using to monitor this, and to make our
I
decisions.
I know you don't like the
I'm
way
sorry
the
that off,
way
I
it's done,
shouldn't have done.
but it works. It has worked for.
But why should you sign them
Last-
off, Alan? I object to that statement because you were saying that all the figures are correct. You are asked to do a bank reconciliation. It's not
I'm not questioning.
No, I know,
the
it's not, but what I'm
integrity
saying is it's not a review of the accounts as a system you're being asked to do. You're asked to reconcile the accounts, and if you say that all of the payments are correct and match the bank statements, that's a reconciliation, and you should have signed them off. I don't think you need to say that you shouldn't have signed them off.
Okay, I'm not questioning the integrity of the accounting system. I've checked it myself, it balances, it's correct. What I'm questioning here is that we okayed these expenses, and I was part of it, that have taken the cemetery way over the budget.
At this position right now,
I think we
but
should,
at the end of the year, it will balance plus or minus, well, minus £600.
I think,
So you need to look at it, you need to look at the 12
yeah,
months.
but we've still used up most of the reserves, in fact all of them.
We've used up our general reserves, but the thing is,
And the ones in,
but the maintenance
the
is,
borough and string and all that stuff.
but the maintenance
No, they're
is,
still there.
the maintenance is
Well, not
needed.
spent.
The maintenance is needed. You know, there hasn't been any expenditure in 7 years on furniture for the cemetery. There hasn't been any expenditure in 7 years because I have an old, so
Okay, I
So
accept that.
what we're saying is we need to do it, and the trouble is the only way to do it is for the basically the parish councils to subsidise it through its precept, which is what is happening next year, because there is no, it is running at a loss. The cemetery runs at a loss, but
No,
it
I
still needs,
understand that.
yeah,
I understand.
Right.
It's not that part that I'm questioning.
okay.
It's not that, it's not the integrity of the accounts I'm questioning. What I'm questioning is the fact that we've got seriously over budget. Which isn't,
Well, £600 isn't seriously over budget.
because we've spent the reserves, income versus expenses, we've gone over
Right,
budget.
right,
We've spent
but what's the
reserves.
deficit?
Spent, you're saying
So
there's a
yes,
deficit.
so there is a deficit. We have spent more.
We
We have
spent-
spent more than came in. But the reason we've spent more than came in is because we bought benches, which need for benches that need replacing.
I understand all that, I understand all that.
So you
But
wouldn't have
we've
okayed.
used up our reserves.
Okay,
Haven't
we
we?
have.
Have we used up our reserves?
Using
We
all
have.
the
reserves
We have used.
Yeah.
to
it.
buy assets.
We didn't have any reserves for chairs. We
have general reserves.
We have general reserves, we've got this weird new cemetery fund, we've got no balance sheet to represent the financial position we're in.
We have got a balance sheet, Alan. This is it. Look, the current balance. You can see a list
It's-
of balances. What's the problem with that?
We're just going to go round and round and
I don't,
circles.
understand.
I'm trying to get what you're
I
wanting.
don't understand what you
I need a clearer system. If I'm to be putting my neck on the line, to be taking responsibility for these expenditures, which you are as a parish council, I need a much clearer system.
But what do you want?
Right, so
what
you do again, you're voicing your dissatisfaction at the balance sheet because you don't like it.
I think we have.
But that balance sheet has worked for this parish council since I was on it. It
I
works.
think the
It's
system, the system has
There's
evolved
maybe
over
a bit
years.
of understanding of it that you're
I'm not
struggling.
sure it does work. I mean, I think there's all kinds of aspects of it which we don't need to discuss today, but which I think is serious consideration, because I don't think the system works.
What is it? What information are you missing that you need?
How much we due in VAT, but we need proper balance sheet, assets and liabilities, how much we do in VAT, how much expenses are coming in from, we are expecting in from the other parish councils.
That's on the sheet. Both of those figures on the sheet. Recoverable VAT 1279. Recoverable VAT for the.
As a balance sheet, rather than in this format where it's all lumped in with income and
Okay.
expenses.
The issue is, I raised that question a couple of years ago, and the asset register, the value of the asset versus what it's really worth, there isn't a depreciation.
Yeah, but you don't have to, you can go with a system like that and still show those assets.
You can't show a depreciation.
Yeah, we don't depreciate, do we? I don't think there's any. So
No,
it's the parish
depreciation.
council.
Well, no, but there's
There's no
but when you
depreciation.
get to an issue like this,
But I'm not
where you
talking about
No, but
asset, as in physical assets, I'm talking as in
Yes,
what we
but
do,
when-
money that we do from the other parish councils. We made this bizarre
There isn't.
payment of,
There is an anticipation.
£1,742.76, which
Yes.
went out, which was an income and no money changed hands.
No,
It's just a purely paper exercise of
because it's
moving
contribution,
it between one bit of the accounts and the other.
yes,
Because it
Because
felt
that's
Parish Council
Parish Council's
contribution to the
contribution
cemetery fund.
towards the running costs of the cemetery. So the cemetery gets an invoice, so let's say it's £100 for painting the fence. Now, we could treat it as the cemetery gets the invoice and I send the copy of the invoice to each of the 3 parish councils and say, please pay me your 33%, your 30, it's not exactly 33, it depends on the electoral numbers, but your 26%, your 42%, your whatever percent it is. Or what we do is we say, please pay us this amount in advance, and then when the invoices come in, I will defray those invoices from the monies that I'm holding that you have contributed. Felton's share of the contribution is 1,742. That amount has been calculated.
That was the question I was going to ask later on. Where does that number come from? How
So-
do you work that out?
That money comes from the cemetery budget. So I'm not sure. So the cemetery budget, we do the same budget process. We work out what we think we're going to expend. That's based on averages. We work out what we think we're going to receive. That's based on averages. We find out the balance and we say to the cemetery committee, to the 3 parish councils, right, we think we're going to get fee income of this much. This is going to leave a shortfall of this much for the expenses. Let's say it's £5,000. Each of you are going to pay that £5,000 in the proportions based on your electoral numbers, because it's not fair for all of the councils to pay an equal share, because obviously some councils are bigger than others. So at the moment, Felton and Newton are pretty much the same size, and Thurston's a little bit smaller. So Felton and Newton and Swarland are paying the same amount, and
So
Thurston's paying.
roughly as a percentage, what do we?
We're about 40%,
Roughly.
and
About
Thurston's about
40%.
20%.
Because 1,742 is about 10% of what we spent. Payment year to date 15,034.
Yes, because I could have written, I mean, we could, when we pay the benches, we could have written to each of the parish councils and said, please put your proportion in.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the benches, I'm talking about, so in that case, we've still got to find 22%. We've already paid 10%, we've paid roughly 30%, so we've got to find 20%.
No, we haven't. No, we haven't, because it's being paid out for the general reserve. The reserves that the cemetery holds are divided between the 3 parish councils. We started the year with £9,000. We started the year with £12,000 in allocated reserves and £9,000 in unallocated reserves. Now, that 21 grand wasn't held by Felton for Felton. It was held by Felton on behalf of Felton, Newton and Thurston in set proportions. So when an invoice comes in over and above the budget, it's coming out of there in the same shares as any expenses being paid.
That's in the budget. What about the actual? What about what we've actually spent and the income that we've actually had?
It's going into the cemetery's pot and being shared out in proportions based on the electoral
But I'm
numbers.
boring everybody here. Shall we just
That's
stop
it, I
this
think-
entire conversation and I can consider just how unhappy I am with this?
I'm just going to say this now. I volunteered to do the job you're doing at the moment when I first joined the Parish Council, and I had to hand the file back.
Well, this is part of my problem.
I was so, like, literally going through the numbers, I was finding it so stressful and things like that, and I did figure, yes, that makes sense and this makes sense, but it's not easy to look at, and for somebody, myself, and even on a real piece of paper, those numbers do that to me, and I find that really difficult to look at. And I got my head around how it is working and things, and I'm like, well, if it's what we used to and it's working and things, I'm happy for us to do, but I totally understand that it is incredibly difficult to kind of look at and get your head around it, and I don't like it, and I will never volunteer to take that folder again because it would cause that much stress, and I completely can see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, but that's no.
Yeah, but no, that was just my starting bit. And I think, we are spending money that we have been anticipating coming in, and I think the fact that we are sharing this resource and this responsibility with other parishes as well, it does complicate it and things. And I think you're completely right in saying that we are spending money that we don't have. Is this issue that we have with the cemetery income that we're actually getting from it, which is changing so, has changed so dynamically over the past few years. We are going to have to look at it, because it's like we're saying, we need to make sure that this is sustainable and whatnot, and put a plan forward going forward. And the work, what we're doing, like predicting with the income that's coming into it, is going to have to. We're going to have to look at it more like as a tighter over an average over the past couple of years rather than over the past decade now, because things have changed so significantly. I am going to agree with Alan that this is an issue, but I think we do need to look at it separately outside the meeting that's happening tonight.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's hijacking the meeting, but I'm not going away from this happening.
No, and we've talked about it. I've said that we can change it, but I just don't. I don't.
Well, I can make lots of suggestions.
Yeah.
I used to be director of a company that turned over £7.5 million a year, whose accounts were way similar than this. Way similar. And that employed 300 people. Because it's in this weird, I'm not pointing the finger at you, Claire, but
No,
I think this
no.
system has evolved over years and it is no longer fit for purpose, is my conclusion to this. And I think we need to address it because it's taken hours just to get to this point of understanding. I still don't understand it. I spent all year trying to figure this out. I still don't understand it. I think I'm not alone in the room in that respect.
No,
And I think the only person here who understands it is you. Frankly, and I think if anybody got asked a question,
I'll confirm I understand it as well.
right?
Just to put that out
Okay. Well,
there. Right.
we move on.
I think that'd be wise.
Chair.
Just
You've got a question?
a very brief question that
Yes,
both
that'd be great.
Thurston and Newman were paid at the end of the year. I think at last meeting they were awaiting invoices for the monies that it owed. Is it possible for the councils to actually pay at the beginning of the year so that the money is actually
It would be
within
a good
the bank?
suggestion, yeah. And then that's why I pointed out that if we have that funds in, it's a very different discussion this, because it would just be you don't like the balance sheet rather than there's a massive hole.
We don't have a balance sheet. There isn't.
We're opening that can again.
So just to
But it would be more about that than the
just
last
to
half an hour.
leave the discussion on a positive note, if we were to, for every expense that the cemetery incurs, if we were to create an asset of the proportion that is due from the other two parish councils, we can create an asset account which has got that in it. It's not that hard to understand. And the expense to Felton Parish Council goes directly out, then that would be a much clearer way of representing it and explaining it. We have an asset of the money that we're owed, and we have an expense of the money that we have spent from Felton Parish Council for the cemetery's costs. That would make more sense.
There's room for changes on it that we can look at. With regards to the suggestion from the member of the public, I think that we have some cemetery committee to look
I'm
at that.
happy to do that.
And just, it then saves funds coming out to different places for it. We move on to 8B.
More questions about that one?
I would be disappointed if you didn't.
Okay, well, one of these has been answered. Sorry if you find this boring. Okay, so there was a sum of £3,060 that went out as an admin fee.
Yeah.
It's not represented in here. Is that because it was?
Was it not in the previous one?
It's been made. It was the repaying money.
Yeah, it's
from
on the
the-
previous
It's on the previous
meeting.
minute. Maybe.
The previous meeting.
If you turn to page
Oh,
3.
right, okay.
The
Right,
agenda.
okay. The figure for charges and conveyancing costs, that's a reserve, not a budget. Did we actually, so we paid off the,
Yeah.
doesn't sound right, we paid off GF White.
Yeah.
That was discussed at the last meeting
That was
as well.
discussed, so we paid that,
Yes.
We've got a reserve of 2,924.
So we have 924.65 left.
So, right. So where's the 924.65 going to go?
That's we can decide at the year end, I think, what we want to do with it, because it can go into a general, it could just go into general reserves.
So are we planning just on cemetery contributions, so that is a proportion of the expenses
Yeah.
that we are transferring
Portion of the same
internally?
budget.
Yes.
A proportion of the budget we're transferring internally
Internally, because
to the section of the account that is felt in the cemetery joint committee.
Yes.
We've got a budget of 4,040. So why is it 1,740? Because it's
Because it's only our share. It's only Felton's share.
right.
The income, that's the budget on the income, so this number here, is this what you're talking, 4,370? That's Newton, that's what's it, that's Newton,
Short days isn't one either.
sorry, that way?
But better.
4,370, that's Felton plus Newton on the Royal Sword plus Thurston.
So what would what really cost? £1,742 isn't a cost, it's just an internal transfer of money between the cost and another.
To Parish Council.
It's like, yeah,
It's a cost to Felton Parish Council.
Not to the total accounts, because the Felton Cemetery is within the main
Yeah,
account, so we're just transferring money into.
But
we're transferring it from one asset code to another asset code. If you're thinking of your money as assets, so we're saying,
You could do that with any amount of money you wanted to, really, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But, no,
it just keeps it clear that we've made our contribution.
But we haven't.
But we have.
That's it.
That is our
That
contribution.
is our contribution.
What about the overspend? We presumably we're going to have to stump up more money for the
No,
overspend.
No,
No.
that is coming out of the general reserves of the Felton Joint Cemetery Committee.
So do we need to top up the cemetery reserves, which we're doing in next year's budget?
Their next year's budget might have topped it up some. I can't remember from the budget statement on it, but
Alan, from what, I've just looked at this while you brought it up. From what I can pick out from that document, when everybody else pays their contributions, it's somewhere in the region of about 600 quid out at the end of the year. Currently, it doesn't look very good, but by the end of the financial period, it should be up to minus 600 quid. So I totally understand it is more than we anticipate that we're going to spend. So the 600 comes out of the general reserves this year. Next year there should be more going in than is coming out, hopefully. But I agree with you. If it is a red number at the end of the year, then you should.
And
Yeah,
we
we
need-
see this.
but we have increased,
Yeah.
we have increased the amount that's in the intermediate with parish councils.
Yeah. So my question to you would then be, Alan, if I say we, I'm not on the committee, but if they don't foresee any large expenditure next year, and obviously you can't overlook storm damage or
Salaries
salaries,
is quite sizable.
But we've put more in for these things, this is what I'm saying.
In next year's
Yes.
in
Let's
next
change
year's
the
budget,
budget for next
because-
year.
And also, it's got to be excess of income over expense to top the reserves
That's right.
that we've spent.
That's right.
Okay, alright.
The other thing that we've done is this year we didn't ask for the full 100% from each of the parishes because the balance was high. But next
So
year we're
we-
asking for 100% from all the parishes.
So we footed the bill.
No,
No,
everybody
it came from
put the bill.
reserves, it came from reserves, it came from cemetery share reserves.
Alright, okay. Alright.
We asked for 65% of the amount this last year.
It looks bleak on that document. It doesn't look very good.
But it isn't good because basically it's a sinking pot. The cemetery is no longer paying for itself, and I would say that is a trend that is going to continue. I can't see it picking back up. It has for a few years.
So we're going to get to a point where we need to change the amount paid in annually to shoulder the responsibility of the
All
cemetery.
the three parish councils are going to end up subsidising it further and further to keep it tidy and maintained because it isn't paying for itself anymore. as far as I can see. And so unless something drastically changes, but it feels like the trend, and I see this on like the Clark's forums and on, that it feels really like the general trend is a move from the population wanting to be buried, which was the traditional, to now most people choosing cremation, possibly for cost reasons.
So what can you do? So if you see a single chip, what can you do to save?
I mean, what we could do is, I think we've talked about some of these ideas that we could effectively mothball parts of it, those bits at the back could be permanently turned over into like meadow, you know, or something. At the moment, they kind of are because we only mow them once a year. We've got to maintain around the grave because it's got to look.
It has to look good, but is there a possibility where you could, I mean, do you sell memorial plaque positions?
Yeah, do all that. Eventually, I mean, I guess this is, I mean, like for example, I know there's a church cemetery, there's a church graveyard. The church graveyard is a closed graveyard because it's full. But I guess eventually that's. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I'll be honest. I don't know what the rules are for closing cemeteries, but potentially there's a point at which you say we've had one burial in 3 years. Let's close it. I don't know because there is a responsibility. I think there's a responsibility on parish councils to provide burial areas.
So is there an argument then that the churches that have closed their churchyards because they're full, can we be asking the churches in the surrounding areas for a donation?
Potentially. I don't know. I haven't looked into any of those sorts of questions, but I think that's possibly where we'll eventually end up going.
I mean, it's still going to cost about £5 grand a year to run the cemetery, to maintain the cemetery. In fact, that's going to cost more than that. The salaries are £5 grand, £6 grand.
Because that's the
Cost of the memorials. Yeah, but there's still £5 grand.
No, yeah.
There's still going to be £5 grand next year.
But even if we had to shut the cemetery, you would still have that maintenance cost of it, because you're not going to, unless you turn it into a field.
But why
which is-
I'm not suggesting
would be
we shut it.
unacceptable.
I'm trying to get a figure for what it costs over and above what we spent this year.
Like I said, I think we do need to wrap
Cemetery.
this cemetery up.
I
I
think
think what we
taking
need
it
to
to
do
cemetery.
is resolve to delegate this back to the Cemeteries Committee to look at ongoing cost sustainability of the cemetery and come up with ideas of how we can deal with that.
Any other questions on payments? Okay, happy with the vote to authorise the payments? Good, we'll close that one out. Back to the cemetery.
Back to the cemetery. Cemetery benches. Okay, well, a lot of the questions have been answered that I had.
That's
I still feel that I voted in favour of these expenses, and I now am not happy about having done that. Because of the way that the expenses required by the cemetery, that authority to make that expenditure passed through to Felton Parish Council. Effectively, what we did was give payments to approve. That was it. It came up on the 11th of September. There were 2 payments for approval.
the Rob discussed that. Felton,
The cemetery
is it Felton Joint Cemetery
Joint
Committee?
cemetery
The Rob discussed and
yeah,
approved
on the 29th of
at those
July.
meetings.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then I made that vote without realising that I could question what the cemetery were deciding. And there was no budget for that expenditure. So I should have asked more questions.
You
I
could have
should have asked
asked
a lot more
the
questions.
question, would it have,
The committees to
the committee takes a decision,
I don't know what the right answer to that question is. Of course, you can ask as many questions as you want about it. The committee is put forward to the main council for approval. So they've already decided what they want
I
to
think
spend their money on.
if I
And
can
parish
sound
council
all this-
were offering a yes or no. Do you want to approve it?
Can I come in on this? I think where the confusion, so I do think this is somewhere that the cemetery committee terms of reference can improve, because the cemetery, in the terms of reference, the cemetery committee has got authority within the budget. The benches were not in the budget, as Alan's previously pointed out, but the cemetery committee then has it's required, it isn't very well worded, because what it says is, before making any significant departure from its budget, the committee shall consult the 3 parish councils. Now, in July, before the members were ordered and reported back from the cemetery committee, the minutes were included in that agenda pack, and she reported back that the cemetery was planning to buy the benches for the memorial and the benches for the cemetery. Now, there was no resolution passed to approve that at that meeting, but that's what I think is bad about that wording consult in the terms of reference, because consulting, it doesn't say requires the agreement of the parish councils, it just says consult with the parish council. I think that terms of reference should be amended to say shall consult and require, an approved resolution to the parish councils. And I think this is a learning point that hasn't been very clear. So there's an argument both ways. Did they have authority to go ahead? So at the July meeting, when it was reported back to the parish council, and then the cemetery went then and ordered those items and asked for the approval for the actual physical payment to happen in the September meeting. So I get the point Alan's raising, and I think that's one that we can easily correct by making the procedure very clear in the terms of reference to the cemetery committee that this is the procedure that has to be followed, and then there's there's no question over the purchases going forward, and it would have meant that Alan would have been able to sit there and say, yes, I remember making a vote that this was what was being put forward, this was the cost, and it's much more clear than perhaps just Councillor Walton reporting it and it maybe not being noticed.
Because also there's 2 rules too. One in the Joint Cemetery Committee, which is that one that you just said about the consult 3 parishes. But we've also got in the financial regulations, spending greater than budget needs authority. Section 4.2 of the financial regulations.
Yeah, but
It's
what
the
was-
authority of the council, so we should have authorised it before the expense was made, not afterwards.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that the cemetery committee has the authority to, whether the cemetery committee has the authority to order it, because the cemetery committee, the cemetery committee assumed that it did have authority because it had raised it at the parish council meeting and then it went ahead to order it. What I'm saying is that I think it needs to be clearer that the cemetery committee needs written approval in the form of a resolution, because then that will avoid this question.
So does the cemetery committee trump the parish
If the
council as a
cemetery
whole?
committee is spending its own budget in accordance with its terms of reference, yes.
What if it goes over its budget?
But this is what I'm saying, that it needed to, the wording of the terms of reference say, will consult the parish councils. But it doesn't say, but I think that needs to be improved.
Yeah.
Can we
So I
resolve to do
think-
that then?
What?
Can we resolve to do that?
Yeah.
We can resolve, yeah.
Well, we need to consult all 3 parish councils.
It'll need to come back to the next cemetery committee meeting to review the terms of reference and get them to sign up to it. Anything else on the matter?
Yeah, there's another one where things sort of clash, which is, it says in the financial regulations, no expenditure can be authorised unless the funds are available. Now, they were available to a very loose definition of the funds being available.
But they were available.
Sort of.
We're still not available, yeah.
No, I don't agree. I think there should have been a reserve for spending on, why wasn't this budgeted? None of this problem would have occurred if this was budgeted.
Because it's a one-off that we've had in the last 7 years, we've never ever had to buy.
You can still budget for it, though.
But then
But that's
That's
not
not a problem.
So it's an oversight, we didn't have furniture in the budget, because we've had the same budget for the last umpteen number of years. We didn't have furniture in it, because we didn't know we were gonna need it at this point.
is that not the point of the general reserve?
And that's
Rather
general
than-
reserve,
rather
yes,
than-
you're right.
Yeah, that's
Because you
all
can't
our
be-
working capital rather than the general
Well,
reserve.
so working capital is a good explanation then. You're using working capital to buy things, and you can work it back.
I disagree. My general reserves are for unexpected expenditure opening up the budget, and the working capital is your budget account. So everything that I've got sitting there in the budget, £100 for this, £200 for that, that's my working capital because it's being used.
It was not anticipated at the beginning of the year, was it?
Well, when we set the budget, it certainly wasn't.
Because that's done the October before the April.
So in that case, the question goes, should we have bought those benches? Should we not? We could have waited another month, put them in the next year's budget and bought them then. No problem.
At the time the benches were bought, isn't it also possible that the salaries hadn't gone out and therefore there was available funds? And it could have all been just done within the normal budget. And it's only because
No, I
the
still don't
salaries
think
have
the
been
funds
paid
were
since
available.
then.
I still don't think the funds were available.
Then anything that you want to do out of the ordinary maintenance schedule, you have to leave until the end of the year so you can approve it in the next budget. Nothing will get done.
And it's not even the
No,
next budget.
everything would get done as we
It's not even
budgeted
the next
for in the
budget,
year.
you're working a year and a half ahead.
If we had an excess of income over expenditure for the year, which we haven't, then we could have considered it then. But I still don't think the funds were available. The money is the general reserve, the budgeting get out of jail free card,
What's the purpose of the general reserve?
working capital.
No,
So
it's not
trying
working
to
capital.
keep enough money
It's
in.
not working capital.
Until we get the
It's
money.
not, it's not working capital, Alan. It's not working capital, Alan, because
It's to bolster
it's
a
not
shortfall
working
from the budget.
capital. Let me, so,
The general reserve is to bolster a shortfall from the budget, from the anticipated budget because of over expenditure. You're not bankrupting you're not bankrupting the cemetery.
this is my work.
So you have to have a general reserve just in case you go over
Could
budget.
I just, Al, I suggest maybe the next joint cemetery committee meeting you pop along to, because you'll have representation there from the other parishes. that you
When
have.
is it?
I personally don't know.
It's April.
So it'll be one of the next couple of months or something.
April, I think.
Can you copy me in on the,
Yeah.
because I get.
It's worth popping out to. Be happy to move on. Yeah. Okay. Getting back to you, Alan. Neighbourhood plan.
Right,
Just call this
okay.
Alan.
Well, it's quite a positive one.
It
Is
is.
it in budget?
Right, neighbourhood plan, where are we with the neighbourhood plan? We have, made an application and been successful in that application for technical support funding for a housing needs assessment. That we knew from last time, that's been approved, it wasn't approved last time, it is now. I've got a Microsoft Teams meeting the week after next to get that kicked off. There's been an article in the Bridge and also part of that article put on Facebook. We've had some response on that. Comments being made that nothing that we didn't know already, that hadn't been made already by other people, of that the housing needs are basically starter homes for young people and bungalows for older people. So that's been said before. I think we've got the broad support of the community to do that. So I think we can push ahead on that one. And we've had 2 volunteers to get involved. One is Kevin, Westlake. Kevin Westlake, who's the architect guy who's down on Main Street. Next door to John. And also a lady called V, can't think of her surname, it's Holland maybe, who lives, she's quite a senior person at the Durham University, so I think she'll be a great asset. She's going to be, and hopefully, I've sent out an email to everybody and said, shall we get together the week after next to talk about it? No, week after next to talk about it. And hopefully we can kick that off and I can start delegating work to people in companies as volunteers to work on that, which will be very good. To try and progress it on. There was one other thing, I can't remember what it was now. No, gone. Sorry, senior moment.
Was
So that's it.
the meeting that you had, was that with about the housing needs assessment.
That was, yes, that was with the technical support for the housing needs assessment.
There wasn't anything additional to report on that.
Not really, they did talk about needing an environmental assessment as well for the impact of
That's
the,
triggered by the housing needs assessment.
triggered by the housing needs assessment.
An SEA, strategic environment assessment.
Yes, yes. One of the aspects of it being parking, I think our newish parish councillor may get involved in that, because I think parking on South View is a massive problem. So your input on that will be very welcome. Also on Main Street. Anyone got any questions about that?
Sounds like it's going to be low on
No,
the
it
low on
definitely
the
is.
land.
I think this housing needs thing could actually have quite a profound impact, and I'm slightly overwhelmed by the whole process because it's a massive can of worms.
All of it's done, like, I mean, they'll do all the actual, labour of putting all of that together, I think, and giving useful information.
Given the undertaking we've made to the county council to consider social housing, it may be the case that this uncovers a need for social housing, and we can allocate land, not entirely sure how it works with who actually owns that land.
It doesn't matter, Alan, what happens is you put forward, it's a bit like the calls, when the county council does its call for possible sites, it's a bit like that, so we allocate land. I mean, you would have a it's polite to have a conversation with landowners so that they're not surprised when they see their bit of land named in the plan, but we would basically say, what it is we would identify what we thought were suitable or appropriate sites, and we would say, we will give we will look preferentially on sites, on planning applications that are on these locations. So then that can really benefit the landowner, because obviously if they want, if they're minded to have a development and their site is identified, great, because they know that the planning application's got a bit of weight behind it, because it's already almost pre-supported by the parish council by virtue of being identified. So it doesn't, we don't have to own the site, we just have to, it's polite, as I say, it's diplomatic to contact the landowners to let them know that their site is potentially being identified, but I think most landowners wouldn't see it as a negative thing, really.
Gemma, do you still have that map that we compiled at the fair about the land owned by a certain local wealthy landowner?
I think, was the big one?
The big one, there were ticks on it.
Did you take that one, Claire, or did I? I never know what it is somewhere.
I think it's your house, sorry, but I'll have a good show, yeah.
So there's going to be a bit of a negotiation there. Because he's got other plans for the village, basically.
Yeah. 2 seconds, I'm seeing, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing I think of at the moment.
One thing, Alan, can you jump on Facebook tomorrow and answer a couple of comments back?
It seems to me that they didn't need commenting back. If you said
I think there's the confusion between Davison Avenue garages and Mouldshaw garages, because there is a set of garages on Davison Avenue, which weren't ever in consideration by the county for developing.
So you panic people.
You panic people a
But the
little
section
bit.
site of garages is under attack and it's not.
Oh,
So, yeah.
I'm just saying what the problem is.
they're entirely unintentional.
Yeah.
We
We understood that.
Go on.
But yeah, maybe it's just something you can just put a comment back saying,
Right.
you're
Okay.
a little mistake, sorry for the confusion.
Right.
And yourself?
That was just about the land. Remember when we did the neighbourhood plan, so previously there was a map, a survey done for a call for land from landowners, and I can't remember what the map is called, but there is.
Is it the SHLA?
That's
Yeah,
SHLA. So that will actually inform council of the land that's available, sort of locally.
We've already got the
Yeah.
data slot, haven't we?
Yeah.
We have a link to that.
Yeah, and it has changed
Yeah.
over the past few years since we last looked at it.
The council are quite relaxed about it as well. You look at it and think, oh my God, they're going to build over the entire village, and actually they're not. And there's
But I
all
think
kinds of
I
considerations.
think my understanding is with the SHLA, it's relatively easy to get a bit of land onto it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's actually
Yes.
realistic
yes.
or suitable or appropriate for building.
Yes.
or if it would be considered.
Yes.
Okay, no, well done, Alan. Diversity.
Right, so, well, the main thing that's been going on,
You can read it though.
no. It's the Cocoa Rivers Action Group, which has now got its crag. So it really is starting to lift off the ground. It could potentially be quite exciting. So as we were saying before, I had got a spiel. I'll try and not go into bits that I've already said, but I'm going to have to, I think. So generally, when we started talking about this in the biodiversity group, it was something that we wanted to address. It was something that people from Felton had started to express a concern about water quality, about the sewage outflow going out into the river and things. There was other people that were having similar thoughts up and down the Coquet, and other groups that were starting to have murmurs and things. So things we didn't kind of get to approach it in the way that we originally planned to, because they were generally already on it. And the main one was Rothbury WY, who did have came very close to getting a grant for tests. So when we first started out, it was looking at supporting them and extending the project down the Coquet. And they had looked at particular test kits and what they budgeted out and things. Unfortunately, though, they weren't successful in their planning application, so their grant application. So it came back to what my original plan was to go through the environmental agency. Now, the environmental agency don't give out grants; they give out equipment and support. So what we've now got, and I think is going to be later this month, we're just finalising a meeting, and the lady from the environmental agency is going to be coming and issuing us with 10 kits which I've negotiated, which are going to be, we need to divvy them out between groups that are down from Thropton down to Amble. And we are just, at the moment, we've got a meeting later. I think they're having a meeting next week with Jamie Day, who's on Thurston Parish Council, and those who can, unfortunately, I can't attend it, so that they can pinpoint where we actually want to have our testing sites and do the health and safety assessments. So as we previously said and discussed, they are acting, the Felton group is acting under Felton Parish Council with regards to who they are and why they're doing it and things. The issue the group have at the moment, though, is because we are newly formed and forming and we want to start activity as soon as possible, we really were looking for an umbrella. At the moment, we have been taking it in turns to pay for hall hire, and obviously we, becoming one of the members of the biodiversity group, can have paid a couple of times, and the Rivers Trust have paid as well, but we would need regular users used to get the preferential rate.
So is it just the biodiversity committee, the parish council that has that? The other groups are
No, can do,
can do,
yeah. But I'm quite keen to keep a hold of this aspect of it and things as soon as possible, and I don't want it just coming out of Cam's pocket. They are saying that they were happy to do the testing and things, but overall the kits have been issued to me.
as in your capacity as a councillor?
Yeah, as in my capacity as a councillor, and looking at how we're going to distribute these out. Now, there's quite a few other river projects that are going on in the North East. The Wylam Clean Time, there's one up in Berwick, and then there's probably the other one was, but they're all very, very highly localised and very just within on a close community level. This project is possibly the first in the North East which is looking at such a wide geographical area, looking at the whole stretch of the river. And I think we could argue, well, why do we want to, as Felton Parish Council, kind of support this and be what my term is, what did I use before? Sorry. Yeah, as an umbrella for them. And that is simply because, firstly, like, what happens further up the coast here has an effect on the quality of water here, and what we do here has an effect further down. And I think it's that responsibility that we have, but also because the sewage works that we've got here is, well, it is in Felton Parish Council, but it also is feeding in from different parishes that are coming here. So if we can have a cooperative project that's covering like a large geographical area, work together, we're much more likely to be able to gain, the scientific data that we want to be looking at, and more clout if we need to be looking at change. So the testing kits that the Rothbury WI were originally looking at were testing for, they've got, it was a composite kit, I've got the name of it, isn't it? We couldn't get that, and it does differ slightly with the ones that we're getting from the Environmental Agency, and the one that we're getting from them is more limited than what we had originally wanted. However, the fact that we're getting 10 kits, what it's going to do is give us a baseline starting point to start the project off and get people testing. And it isn't just about the water testing, it's also about the observational data that people are gathering that the Environmental Agency are really interested in. But what's really nice about this as well is that we're not just being limited to do what the Environmental Agency do. Once we get it established and start kind of collaborating the data, we can actually add into it with other things, such as the invertebrate surveys, which is probably one of the biggest things, but that takes more time and commitments as well. So the idea was if we could start off with these 10 top sites of the co-kit and we get that established, then we can start to add into it with time. Now there's a couple of people that are looking into grants at the moment to add into it so that we can extend the equipment that we're using and the testing sites as well. So I know that Brinkburn are looking at the windmill running, and I was going to be approaching the Duke of Northumberland for some of the grants that they've got going there. And what this would look at is looking at getting potentially more of the same tests or adding in additional testing as well. Because there's things like ammonia that you can test for, and there's E. coli. But the E. coli tests themselves, they cost significant amounts of money, which we could potentially look at in the future. So there's all of this going on, but the general gist at the moment is we want to get these 10 kits up and running so that people are doing monthly tests, and also we can consider testing in the case of a known incident. So when somebody kind of contacts us for a fault saying, I can see sewage being pushed out into the co-kit, we can actually consider going and testing at that point, even if it's not one of our monthly testings. And the information that we gather, we will be keeping ourselves and collaborating, but it also will be going on to the Environmental Agency app as well. So it's kind of like a double barrel of what we're doing with it. And Jamie Day, who's on Thursday Parish Council, he is willing to do data analysis for us as well for the whole project. And we're looking at something that is potentially going to go on for years and will evolve. So that's what I hope is, but I think everyone's quite reluctant at the moment to set up something kind of independent, as Fiona said before, about a legal entity and things, because we need to actually see if this is going to work to start with. The Environmental Agency are very, very keen on it because they launched their big citizen science campaign, which is generally in short is that they're not being given the funding to go out and do the field work that they would like to be doing, so they're getting members of the public to volunteer to do it, which is why that they were very keen to be getting involved with this and having us doing it. So really what this was to explore if Parish Council firstly is happy for me to book the room for meetings, and we're talking about going down to, at the moment we've probably been having a meeting every 4 to 6 weeks, which as I said the costs have been covered by, we've taken it turns to pay for them. But for the quarterly meetings for us to pay for it under the diocese.
So do you want to pay for all the meetings? Or?
I think at least quarterly, so that we could look and we put that under the Felton Biodiversity group meeting, but I would extend it into having the Rivers group there. There's other people that are kind of like satelliting off to have other smaller meetings, obviously for their locality and things. And the meeting is going on the next week or so will just be a field meeting, it won't need anything. The other thing is if in the time between us actually managing to set up as a legal entity and getting bank accounts and things, we do get a grant if we are happy to hold that grant, if we are saying that it is Pelham Parish Council acting on behalf of this group of Crag. I mean, to be quite honest, after what I've just sat through with the cemetery committee, I'm almost reluctant to be even asking this. But if you're happy for me to be, say, biodiversity funding to fund at least the greenway, that would be really, really helpful.
I think the question would be, because obviously in order, you won't be able to get a grant without having a legal entity status, so effectively what you're asking is, can the parish council be the applicant on behalf of a bigger group, therefore receive the funds, and my concern would be that therefore, if the parish council has to be the applicant, and therefore receive, because it's going to receive the money, then the parish council, that money is the parish council's money and would need to be spent in accordance with our. So what I'm sort of saying is, your group would need, the crowd group would need to be aware that you would be then buying in, as it were, to the financial requirements that the council has to follow, like the 3 quotes or the, decisions at meetings, like a parish council meetings rather than at crowd meetings. I think, but I think as long as your group understood that, and as obviously if it's it's intended as a short-term stopgap, basically, so you can kind of get yourselves up and running.
Yeah, because there is a chance that it will fall flat on its face, and I think that's always a possibility. But I'd like to think otherwise with the amount of enthusiasm that's there at the moment. It would be sad if it did, which I don't mean to be a lot of people are very dedicated to it. But I think it's the complexity of the fact that we've got numerous different groups all involved, but it's sat more within the remit of what our original plan was, to try and bring everybody in and contact other parishes and everything, to have a joint project and things, whether or not we could work with it in that way.
Well, obviously the CAN group has been involved with a lot of things going on in and around, and obviously they're very proficient at what they do and very supportive of the things that they do. Obviously they are a legal entity, and there might be more leeway within their group to actually sort of do the things that you're sort of talking about. I'm not saying they're not support their efforts, but in terms of actually sort of the funding and monies, then some of the constraints that the clock has discussed then wouldn't necessarily apply. I mean, obviously they're, I can't think of the term.
Yeah, it's been discussed with Cam, but I did say that I would ask here tonight, and Cam wanted me to. So
I think my concern is that the scrutiny that we get like a 10-page document sent to the auditor for benches, stuff like that.
Yeah,
it opens
I
up,
would,
and I wouldn't want to have that burden on Crag.
Yeah.
Basically, it would be my opinion on it.
I actually agree.
Let the pay using the biodiversity committee kind of quarterly meetings and stuff like that. I think for the whole hire and stuff like that would be great, and it's some support that we can give.
Okay.
But I wouldn't want to burden them with what we have to deal with at the council. Basically,
The parish council have no control over their financial responsibility as well. So if they did something that we didn't agree with, we wouldn't have any control.
Yeah.
But I would totally be in support of the parish council helping the biodiversity group committee make this happen. So if there was anywhere that I could be as a parish councillor be involved as far as fundraising or or track for support or help or time, then
turned into the charity?
I think also like there's something we could look at as
Okay, we'll look
I-
at
I-
alternatives, and I personally think that there will be a better alternative to this. But if you are happy for biodiversity group to come and move higher, and also what we discussed about the insurance, that they're acting under the restriction of Parish
Yeah, so
Council.
what I understand is, I mean, I will double check, because I
Yeah.
don't want it to fall in the river and to be a problem. But my understanding in terms of, I've asked questions about volunteers before the insurance company, my understanding is as long as there are appropriate risk assessments and safety policies in place, and that they are clearly acting under a schedule, so if they're deemed to be volunteering on behalf of the biodiversity committee, so our biodiversity committee members effectively insured to go to do that.
The other thing is that was approaching them to go directly and asking for regular use of water.
Okay,
So as long as they have, as long as you're going to have 4 meetings in a year, there's every likelihood that
okay,
happy
right, okay,
regular
we'll
use.
do
and
So the insurance that you're talking about in terms of the volunteers, is that just the volunteers that are involved within the Felton area, or?
Yes, I think, yes,
Yeah.
yes, each group would be responsible for its own insurance, so what we're talking about at Felton is the Felton, so Gemma mentioned earlier, she said that the Felton section of the river
Yeah.
is going to be tested by biodiversity committee members and volunteers, so they will come under the Parish Council's insurance, and they will be basically, the biodiversity committee will take responsibility for making sure that the risk assessment was in place, and the people had received an appropriate safety briefing, and that they were following the schedule set out by the committee, and then they would be part of the committee's basically volunteer team.
Right.
So I think that, yeah, and I think from my understanding from having previously sought the insurance company, that that's what they require, but as I say, I'm going to speak to them about specific circumstances once Gemma comes.
each of the different groups are sorting out their insurance. So I think the WI had it, and then there's York with Green Matters have got it, and so we're not responsible for anyone else apart from the.
So once the length of the river is divided up into the test sections, each section will be managed by, operated by a particular group, and that group will be responsible for its tests and its insurance.
Cool. Has anybody got any other questions? No, sounds good.
good process, very good, yeah. Committees, what is it?
Just to point out, obviously, thanks to the member of the public who just added notes to me, the property committee meeting minutes that are included are in draft at the moment because they haven't been back to the property committee.
So, Recfield, our outline plan application has been submitted for putting building down the Recfield. We've had some feedback from highways and some from the ecology environment. Amazingly, what was her name? Andrew Francis actually responded.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had some of that, and we're still working on that, but it's in the workings. Kevin's done a good job of continuing the conversation with planning and things. So
He's been very helpful.
yeah,
His assistance has been really, really appreciated.
yeah. Yeah.
I have a question about the grant, the Riverside grant.
Yeah,
Where are we on that?
so I just sent round,
The ramp is,
Has it actually started?
Genuinely,
the last few days,
Oh, last time I looked, there was
in a
nothing.
bit.
So,
Yeah, I looked on Tuesday and
Yeah.
I was looking
Been there
across
the
the road
last
to see what's going on, and the
Tuesday.
guy was walking down the road with his spirit levels.
so yeah, so I think
It's rattling on.
there was an email that came out about the structural report. Like Jamie had got the verbal, it was all, the verbal report was that everything was structurally sound. He's suggesting that if we wanted a written report, there was a fee to pay, and he thought that given our need to show that we've jumped through hoops, it might be worth us paying for that, but obviously that's a decision for us to
So, yeah.
I spoke to him yesterday. He has said that whilst he'll be working down there, he is going to suggest that we consider whether or not we would be allowed to put any area of semi-hard stand in at the bottom of the ramp to actually almost mark where the ground is meant to be, that could be swept off or protect things, because he says otherwise we're going to end up.
I think originally it was like that because there was some sort of that sort of wire down, but I think it's in the
And we suggested that for us to consider once it's complete.
I guess that
So hard stand option would be his recommendation, some sort of.
The ongoing maintenance there, like after the river being flooded, because there's quite an expenditure there, it's probably worth on someone's to-do list is to make sure it's clear after.
Yeah.
Because it's the silt build up should be the issue, isn't it?
Another question? Red phone box?
so that's still on my desk to chase up with the commission.
Very sad.
I know it. I know. I thought that the other day, Alan. I agree with
It
you.
does look sad.
It's with me.
What about the bid from Glaston's?
Yes.
Why was that? What is that about?
There's one at there's a double bin outside the shop. So it used to be a single bin at the shop, and it's now a double. And the single bin that wasn't the shop was put up at the entrance of Covert Park on the dog walking loop. So you've probably availed yourself of it and not realised it because it doesn't look new because it came from outside the shop.
Alright.
So it increased the capacity for dog waste
Because that was,
at the entrance to Covert Park.
right, the one that's outside the shop, that was quite expensive, wasn't it?
Yes, it
It was
was.
like 700 or 800 quid.
Yeah.
That's
And it's,
Is there anything in the budget for next year for doing the dog poo bits?
Yes, there's quite a healthy budget for the street furniture. It's in the property minutes.
But they're looking really sad. They know the components are quite good.
Some of the constant overflowing, that one in the gap is
Yeah,
always overflowing.
yeah. They all are.
Yeah.
Even the bins on the rec field were overflowing. So
Yeah, they have a lot of builders driving them.
There was one of the last storms, and then pre-Christmas, I think, when the collection, I think they diverted the resources to go and empty them, because they missed the empties that day, basically. There was one in Good Friday before Christmas or something, or around about that time, and then back in January they missed another one. But they generally catch up with it a few days later.
so is there a need for more bins?
I think we think about it, the one at Coquette has, even though there's 2 bins there now, both of them have been very full. It might be worth a double bin put in there, which then frees up the single bin there and the dog poo, the waste bin, to then potentially one get moved to halfway around the loop if we consult the landowner who put it there. And there are lots of bins around them.
I think though
It's just whether they're
I think there's been a real
place.
problem. I think there's been quite a number of problems with emptying them. I'm not saying that that's the only route, of course. I do think that we need more bins, but I've had a number of people say to me at various points, this bin's too full, this bin's being missed, and so on. And I do feel like there's been quite a few issues with the regular bin collection. And I did wonder whether there had been a new operative in because they kept missing a couple.
The frustrating thing though is this bin's full, I'll just leave it beside it.
Yeah.
It's littering.
Yeah.
It's your dog, and you can find an empty bin if you try hard enough.
And I think
It's not just dog waste that goes in the
No,
dog bin.
well, no.
No.
And I'm not too sure who's done it, but somebody does put black bin lines by the bins. There's certainly one for Coca and certainly one in the gap over Christmas.
Just was that because it had been emptied though?
Yeah, so
So this one, I think,
that could be, there is someone in Coquette that I think,
Litter bins.
no, not even litter picking, they empty the garden once a month, I would say, and take the poo bags there.
I've seen them now.
So I'm assuming it could be that person. I say once a month, but there might be poo bags that they take, it's considerable. So it could be that.
Could be.
but yeah, but property management committee has got it on their ongoing review, they're sort of
Constant
progressing,
review of bins.
progressing it gradually, and they've got £5,000 as of April the
Can we
1st
get,
to
if
spend on.
we're getting hoovers, can we get the green ones?
Yes. Yeah.
Not just have proper
I think we should have proper
But if we
bins,
just put,
if it's
yeah,
space, because
I'm not sure that message gets through entirely, because you can put it in the other bin.
There are stickers you can get for them, so that show that it's a mixed waste bin, so we maybe look at that, and because I think the stickers will peel off a few bins, so that we can maybe do replacing.
They were looking old about 15 years ago.
Yeah. But they do their practice, don't they? The old
Clean
bins.
up after your dog. Yes.
there is an improved fairly.
Yeah.
That's not that like.
One more, much of I hesitate
No,
to
no,
mention
no.
it. When are we going to install the benches for the cemetery? Because they just sit there.
They are sitting there, the weather, yeah.
I think we're going to speak to Peter when he's got availability, and then potentially he'll speak to the property management committee, we will help them move it into the vicinity of it, because then once it's there, he can move it himself, but getting them physically up there will be a two-man lift.
Right.
Is there housekeeping involved with that though?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't speak to Peter.
Well, yeah,
Well,
that's
yeah.
that. I've said to Anne tonight, she can speak to Hazel to speak to Peter to,
That's
You said to get in touch with you guys.
yeah.
Because Peter's line manager is the person who must instruct Peter.
Oh, I see. I'm right, got it. Yeah, yeah.
And I have my collar felt for accident to do something cool.
Well,
Right.
we're
So
it's
it-
moving.
It will get done,
it's
and
going to go on the grass, and then you fix them together around the tree to sort of keep them
Around the
secure.
tree, there'll be a bit of trimming of the holly around the tree as well, and maybe a little levelling of ground if needed.
and we talked about, at the moment, there is like, there is a sort of clear path leading to it, so we
Yeah.
said what we'll do is assess it for the first few months,
Potentially
and then
cut
if
that
we
at
need
a
to-
lower height, just to, so that it's more obvious that it's a path.
and then assess whether we need to actually put a hard standing path in or not. Do you want to mention the DFID progress?
Yeah, DFIB, progress, we've got DFIB. We
Arrived like literally just like 2 days before Christmas, so.
yeah, currently in secure storage. We've got a bracket, kindly fabricated by Chris to attach it to the pole, which we cleared the pole of any vegetation, and
We've had an offer to do it for cost, from an electrician to install for cost, so,
Yeah.
that's It's quite, it'll be quite an easy one, because it just requires a few, something.
a few smart.
A few, I was going to say that, and I thought that that's not quite good. So,
Have competence in your electrical knowledge.
so it's exactly,
Potentially.
so the electrician had a look and said that, it was there's already spare fuse space and everything, so it'll fit in what we've already got there, so it's a relatively
There's
straightforward
already a
job.
way of running,
Exactly.
somebody's ripping it out the other day.
No. So we just need to.
So that's just going to be, as soon as possible.
Okay.
Do you want to drop that off from the house, so I'll get that mounted?
Just on that point, the other suggestion is that I received from someone was to get a sticker for the box with the what 3-word location, because apparently that's being used more by the emergency services, so that when someone rings up, they can say, I'm by the DFIB at this location, and it'll give them.
Do it from your PC and not your mobile phone.
Right.
You get different results.
Really?
Is that not an issue though? Because then people are going to be on the mobile phone, given the location from the mobile phone.
But if it's on the sticker
Oh,
on the
yeah.
on the
Yeah,
box,
it's on the box, they'll be able to see I'm at this location.
so that'll either be inside the window or on the box or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how that will work, but
Probably
we'll look,
be-
once it's up, we'll have a look.
Yeah, we can get
Is there not an identification number on the leaf?
There is, but apparently, now more and more, apparently when they say where are you, if you can give them what
You
3
would do
words.
no harm having it there, would it?
Yeah.
No?
Yes.
What's the words is great to use all the time.
No, that's good.
14 correspondence.
No, it's 15. I think we covered that anyway with the previous meetings we discussed.
So
for the shop.
starting that toilet with the.
Oh yes, that's right, I got an email.
So,
But that's not going to affect, like,
It shouldn't
rehire, it
affect-
just
no,
affects
it
using the
shouldn't affect
toilets, and there should always be a toilet available.
the only thing is that they are using this as a thoroughfare sometimes during the day, so we might end up with furniture misplaced or something. But it shouldn't be. It should be done by the
14 correspondence received.
Am I the only one that couldn't make head or tail of the letter about the contract for the doctor, the land for the doctor's? Because I couldn't follow that.
It was very straightforward.
It was extremely complicated, I couldn't
I
understand
know,
it.
I think there's
Easily,
I think,
a lot of legal jargon in it, but I think the gist of that what was they agreed with pretty much all of it. We just need
they have pushed back, I had a conversation with him where he has pushed back on a couple of things, this is where he's kind of got to. I was going to suggest, obviously, it came in too late to go onto this agenda, what I thought would be the best thing to do would be to see if he can give us like a Zoom meeting, Teams call, just for any questions that anybody has, so that they feel confident coming to a meeting to say, yes, I'm happy with the final terms, and it just gives people a chance to ask those
It would
questions.
help that we can have all the format changes.
I know. Is that, are you happy for me to sort of arrange that?
I can make my question very simple. What? I really didn't, I tried to read it on my mobile phone and failed.
go on the computer. Okay, a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Not a lot. And then you can have the doc, because we're talking about a document that's attached to it as well. So
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
I
So
didn't
that's-
understand it then.
a bit of the issue, I think. Anything else? What was that?
That was an email, that was an email from a resident, just drawing our attention to the planning application, which I already didn't know about. We weren't originally consulted, it's been bounced around a bit because it's technically in Accrington's parish, but Thurston obviously were quite interested in it, because because of where it is, it's visible from a wide scope. Accrington, although it's in their parish, are actually the least affected because of the live land. So it's been drawn to my attention by a couple of people, and we've now been, we were not originally on the list of consultees, but we've now received the consultation letters, so they've obviously extended the consultation group, because, yeah, which is why it's now appeared onto our agenda. So that this was just an email from a resident who lives in an affected area.
I understand it's going to severely impact on the traffic through Thurston.
Well, they put in,
That's what all the comments are about.
Thurston has put in an objection based on traffic and infrastructure and suitability of the roads. I think they talked about the visual impact of the stack and the steam that's coming out. So they're saying it would be like, I don't know how true it is, but it would be like the one on the A1.
On the A1.
Now I think it's I thought the A1 one was a grain, was to do grain. Is it the same thing?
It's the same farm, the same owner,
Same on it, yeah.
same plant.
And it will be quite visible from our parish.
Did you go for those?
It will be visible, very visible because of the look. But I don't know how far back from the hill end. High Park's the one. High Park's is
It's-
standalone.
you know,
Right, it's not really that.
No,
I
it's
know,
not.
so
It's back to it's the same.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
But you can see it, so if you went down Malthoff Lane,
You'll see
like all the way
it.
down the farms,
Yeah.
it's the farm you can see from the bottom of
It's
Malthoff.
got landslide.
But isn't it just, but isn't it
But
just
it's beautiful.
farmland?
No, it's one of these drying facilities. So
Yeah, but doesn't it just look like farmland?
Probably, but it's a
Fire
steam,
bill,
it's
it's
a
just stack.
steam cloud that people are concerned
Cloud
about. It's a cloud factory.
There's one on probably the A1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You only see on certain angles on the road at
think the concern was the main routes from the A1 going through.
Yeah, so it's the traffic is the issue.
Yeah, it's trucks and stuff like that.
Past the school.
But then maybe they should, well, I'm sure the traffic planners will have looked at that anyway.
They don't the thing is though, they do look at it, but they don't really take it into consideration. If highways say it's accessible, they're not bothered about
I
the.
mean, they've got the alternative of coming off
With the other factories.
if you use the prison road,
Yeah.
then it's much easier.
Yeah, they've got the sat navs will be
So the
through
wagons, the delivery vehicles going to and from that premises are entitled to use the road that's there.
Oh yeah, it is. And the thing is though, it's like we've got Acklands and Mart there that, you know, everyone comes to and, you know, do we have one
Maybe
link?
we could bring more traffic in.
Or is it not unfair to say that everybody else is allowed to use trucks with you?
I mean, I think the person,
The
the
bit
resident
of
that
difference in
emailed.
this is going to be continuous trucks.
Is it?
Is it?
It's just these transports where it is,
Well, it's good.
But it's no worse than in the summer.
it's
It's
the
not as
fuel,
summer when we got all
the
the
fuel
fuel
for the
going
plant
down.
has got to be trucked in.
Yeah.
Well, it's just
Some
silent
drive
and
got to be trucked in.
and horses.
That's what I'm saying,
Whatever's
in
right,
summer when we get
yeah.
the tractors going up and down from the manoeuvring and hay and all that.
There's already one plant in existence on his land, why doesn't he build another one right beside it? Rather than.
I think the person that emailed me has obviously been concerned about the visual impact that it's going to have, and it will be potentially visible, but I don't know whether it.
It's the same bill. It can't be the same form.
I think it's the same,
Same landowner. Two ones, I think.
Most of it, and then just moves up.
Okay.
But yeah, it's traffic seems to be
So
the main.
traffic's the main issue with it.
Or it's chaining, it's unsightly. I don't think we can fight anything else for that.
Is it the farm just trying to diverse then from expanding?
A couple of things. Obviously, you've just got that one of the A4, now we've got this one. Is this not an industrialisation of the countryside? Secondly, it's within the SSI site of the River Crooked, sort of the grading system with that. It's also on the.
It's within the SSI zone.
I think the zone is the first zone is the water, but it's obviously higher up, so you have a tiered zone from the river either side, so it will be within one of those zones of the SSI site. Another thing to consider is that I don't know whether you've driven along the A1 when the wind's blowing and having to drive through the steam. Last week was actually travelling along the steam line, so it's like for a mile, which I've got recorded. There's also settles to the north where the topography of the land, the steam and whatever emissions come out settle in that area. So one of my concerns would be that if the easterlies are bringing the emissions towards the village, it actually has the potential to settle within the river area, because there's very little movement once you're in that meandering part of the stream. So there's other elements that I would hope that the council sort of would consider along with the traffic.
You get onshore breezes.
Pardon?
You get onshore breezes even when you've got a westerly wind.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm just
Well, I'm just making a point.
Question I had that I wasn't aware of what the prevailing winds were.
What comes out of
Steve.
I was going to say, yeah.
Apparently.
Well, they've got to heat it, so there is a chimney belching out gas dilution.
gas pollution?
The burn.
Well, it's got to be heated. There's a big burner.
So,
It's just a big dry out.
The dryers.
It's just drying all the feet, make it dry for horses.
right,
For
right.
horse people.
If it's,
Get
right,
rid
so
of-
it's
get
going
rid
to
of
dry,
dust and stuff.
dry paper pulp
It's
and
paper.
bedding.
Yes.
It's going to involve a feeder, drum, burner, stack installation and control room.
There isn't any gas or anything on site, so that
They have to what, sorry?
there's any gas on site, so we've got to burn materials.
So it's got to be transported.
And it's fueled by gas.
No, there's no gas on site.
Right, so they're not bringing in gas to burn to.
No, they're bringing in wood chip.
Yeah.
So it's a biomass.
Just a quick little word, we've got 11 minutes left, so we will need to extend. I think sort of merge that one into the planning anyway, so we'll move on to planning, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And if there was further discussion on it, we'll discuss it then. So,
Looked at most of them,
Most
these
of them,
the new ones at the bottom, Riverside, which is just a shed, 58 Main Street, which is obviously Castle Blues, and this Hyde Park Farm. So do you want, what's the view, is there a comment going on Hyde Park Farm, or do we not, is it in, feels quite
I
inconclusive?
feel concerned for our neighbouring area traffic.
Well,
Right,
it comes
is
from
it-
the river, because they're not,
They'll come up, because they're coming down from Scotland, they will use the village,
yeah, they'll come straight down Main Street.
yeah.
because that's where they sadly have to. Yeah, it will be affecting us eventually.
Absolutely raised as a potential traffic concern through the village.
I, from a completely selfish point of view, from somebody who walks along the river in that direction, the thought of there being a mission, like even though I know it's steep, it will be unsightly, and I think it's part of our,
It's not just steam, they're saying.
okay, yeah,
they're
they are burning fuel as well, but the visual thing, what you can see,
Yeah.
and I don't want to mission, it's probably not the worst of it, but the visual impact on us enjoying our,
Financially, it's the right location, which is not the right location industrial.
yeah,
We can't object on the basis of visual impact.
What about smell?
not really.
You can,
Smell.
it's not an industrial zone, there are industrial zones available in this area. No reason to commit into a farm, just because a shed happens to be empty.
We've got lots of sheds empty up there as well.
So I'll have,
Some will fall in the river shop, didn't they?
I'll have a look at
Well,
what,
that's it.
The farm's alright.
I'll have a look at it,
Flat
because the flat on the houses I knew that, but
Building,
the
you
actual,
build a new roof.
no,
I'll have a look at what we can put in, so in terms of planning objections on those, I mean, we can just raise our concerns, even if it's not a planning matter, it can just be, at least we've noted our concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so unsightly and traffic. Yeah.
Just industrial traffic.
I think there's the triple SI point as well,
Yeah.
You just look through the other comments, you could paste in about 5 minutes.
First is quite detailed, I'll borrow some of Lisa's words.
Just put it through chat GPT, put it through chat GPT and then get a new one.
Read my text. This is building concept.
What, is that the one in the corner? That runs through?
It's
So
got,
they just want to repair the damage that's.
yeah, and they've had a few weeks, they had the outbuilding a bit higher up, and are they not the guardian wall as well?
No.
No, yeah, it's the other side.
For
Yeah, the garage is like next to it, but yeah, I think it's been approved as well.
Yeah, it has.
That's nice.
Do we need to discuss, does anybody want to discuss John's, or happy to just, any comments?
I don't see why we would get involved on it. It's no impact personally on the village, really.
Listen, if anybody wants to, if anybody has a strong feelings about it, I mean, you can obviously ask John to leave now, or you can send comments around, everybody else might email me if necessary, we can have an extra meeting.
will it block anyone's view of the Christmas tree?
Depends where you stand on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, you'll be able to, yes.
You're standing in my garden, unless I get a big Christmas tree.
Will it include a felt and free state?
I couldn't see the plans, there wasn't any,
The,
plans on it the other day.
so you know what's already there, it's a single story. Am I allowed to say this? The single story that's already there, we're building on top.
Do you go up two heights?
Just on this current single story that's there, that's going to allow a bedroom for one of the other bedrooms to be turned into an office.
Do you not need more bedrooms though?
Well, the boys share. currently have 3 kids and 3 bedrooms, so you know inevitably.
Currently.
Yeah. Well,
This is something new you're telling us.
I am not.
Certainly not subject to planning.
And it's out this budget.
Anyway, so yeah, so we're not building another bedroom on the house as such. We're moving the office from the admin side of the office home. So the upstairs of our house is going to change the layout a bit. The downstairs is the bit that is like a new build, if you like, and that's going to come out 6 meters, single story. So there's already a sandstone wall there, and essentially there'll be a roof on the top of that. So I'm trying to find maps and stuff like this to see what was there originally, because there is ruins of an old stone building there.
There was quite a few of the premises damaged that used to have hovels behind them.
Yeah.
So there's like, you can see in my garden, there's like a little window in the wall.
Yeah.
And it's because people used to build like, what they were called hovels, and they were like one room dwelling places, and they would rent them out to people. And then there was the cook house at Garden House, where everyone used to go to cook the food.
So currently there's a sandstone wall, and then there's a red brick, like a room, and then there's like a red brick repaired bit. The red brick repaired bit will not be touched, but the sandstone bit will come down and go like back up a bit closer, because the current house has got like a bow in it, which is particularly irritating. So that will become square, but that will go out to a single story.
That's fine.
Right, anyway, and if you've got comments in my email, as I said, I'll let you know if there's a huge disagreement.
Do we get to put positive comments on our own application?
I don't think so. Really should have been before.
That's a good point. Families and
I
individuals.
don't know.
Oh, spouses name.
Items for the next agenda, we end?
The planning lots on Main Street.
Yes.
And we are on top of the management committee.
I'm going to look at those as well.
Yeah, but it'll have to be the property management committee, but also on the idea that there would hopefully be a solution to put the Parish Council quickly.
So,
The Felton doing main things which pops. Housing information from now in and down to.
So is the resident happy about those flower pots there, or was unhappy about?
No.
Still not happy?
I think the property management committee needs to.
Just on it,
Well, I didn't talk about the first one that's received, but I
Yeah.
think we should.
we probably should have.
So the backstory.
The night that the resident passed comments on it, it's the night of a power cut to the village where the street lighting wasn't working, and in a amber weather warning, which I've passed them multiple times since, in varying degrees of darkness, and they are fairly visible under the street lights, unless a car is parked in a particular type to the entrance to the Cookman on the north side of that entranceway.
I agree with you.
It depends on the-
Number of times and they are sometimes not very visible and sometimes very visible.
I think it depends on probably the height of the vehicle, because all all the street lamps out on the west side of the street, which causes a part of the issue. But
The main issue is they are black. The plant pots are black, and the compost is black. But in about 2 weeks, there will be 50 odd daffodils burst out.
Are they the new pots or the old ones?
They
can we extend 5 minutes? I think we can wrap up in that. Yeah. Happy.
So myself and Chris went down to the bridge with all intentions of removing the wooden ones, and there's no base in them. It's just a
The
plastic
rock
bag.
concrete.
But we're not
away.
sorting out the
So-
old composite ones.
Yes, so because, to be honest, I was going on holiday and I took the decision and contacted the rest of the property management team, said, for speed, can we get 2 of the new ones, put some compost in, put them there, with the idea of, there is 2 composite ones on the bridge, to swap them over, because it's just a lift for a lift, you know, and I don't know if you've all seen the email that went round. This was brought to the attention of the Parish Council ages ago, like months ago. I reported it to fix my street, because I witnessed, and it's been reported to the Parish Council, that there's been vehicles driving from north and south, driving onto the pavement to go various places, the shop, the cafe, for a wander, wherever. It's not just cars, delivery vehicles, the Royal Mail, the tractors and trailers, vans, delivery, you know, takeaways.
Sainsbury's regularly.
And the idea was reported to Fix My Street to try and get the company to do something about it. We got a letter back, I got an email back. The Parish Council got an email saying one of your parish councillors has been on Fix My Street. And I don't want to paraphrase the email, but if you don't mind, I will. Basically, they said we could look to put bollards there, but the alternative solution is a more decorative solution would be planters. As long as no part of the planter was closer to the edge of the curb than half a metre. So we said, right, well, we put them a metre away and 2 metres apart from the curbs and the drop curb. Any buggy of any size can get down there. It's just sort of slightly narrower than the car, but in theory you could have 2 wheelchairs pass one another, and no one should have a problem. The reason for starting there was that particular location does adversely affect 2 houses, but it's also an entrance to Cookwood Vale and all of the houses on that road, and the brick house further up there and up on the rigs. And if you're coming out of Cookwood Vale or the rigs, you cannot see what's coming down that curb until your eyesight's out past it, and by that point you could have been crashed into. It's convenient that we've put the plant pots there while it's been suggested there's an argument ongoing. But having spoken to the resident who's named in that email, he has not had an argument with the developer. So while I responded to everybody saying, you know, we went on to Fix My Street, and this is the timeline for it all. We just happened to do it that weekend as the start, trying to improve things. And if the planners aren't suitable, the guy who contacted back from Northumberland County Council said, if that's not, he didn't say if it doesn't work out, so if that's not suitable, then we could consider bollards there. But bollards are a very permanent thing.
Could we put in a tall, you know, like, sort of, I know it's a bit grand perhaps, but could you put one of those double you know, like, if there was more height to bring it up to?
Because people have dogs and leaves and walk by the side of it.
So there were canes that were right down to the base of the planter that
I'm sure they've got
dog went hungry and.
But then that's the same as a street lamp, you know, you go either side of the street,
Yeah.
couldn't you? You know,
On the
I'm
telegraph
just thinking
pole.
for the tripping point, you could have, if you had a 2-tier thing.
So to make it more visually, to make it more visible, you put canes in which were destroyed, and the solar panels, because it's winter, the little solar lights can't get enough sun to keep them on all night. So,
We could, somebody else said something about bikes and things, so we could put reflective strips on them. I think the other thing is just communication. I think, had we put something out before we did this saying, the Parish Council will be installing these on the advice of County Council. The reason why we're doing this is X, Y and Z, they will be installed on this date. We might have had some feedback saying, please don't do this. And at least then we could have considered what people were saying, but also we would have been prepared for it. And even in the absence of streetlights might not have, and I think that might be, no.
I don't think it would have made a difference if we had like images. Maybe if we got more comments back. One thing I have noticed, there has been some positive comments on it, which is it's good. So So
Can I, in the interest of just, can we then, so property management group to revisit and look at solutions to the problem? Yeah.
well, I mean, the obvious solution is reflectors and things like pots.
Yeah, but
In a timely manner, because God forbid anyone should have an accident on them. You know, they definitely weren't setting out to A, upset anybody, or two, try and injure anyone. And it was a very personal, I took it very, very personal. The email that came through was very to the point and unnecessary.
well, I had at my door pretty much verbatim what was said in the email.
date to the next meeting, 4th of March, 24.
24.